Welcome back. I'm talking to the forensic historian Alan Wilson, and before the break, Alan, we mentioned academia. Now, surely there must be one or two cases where a professor has wanted to support your work.
Oh, well, you know, Professor John Collis of Sheffield, independent of us, he spoke at the conference in Cardiff, and he said, look, there are no Celts in Britain, there never were. See, nobody thought the British, in the sense of the Welsh, the Scots, the Irish, were Celtic before 1714. The arrival of the Hanoverians. You've got to give them, if you destroy somebody's history, you've got to give them a new identity. And that they get, oh, they're Celts. The Welsh are not Celts, neither are the Scots, and I don't think the Irish. It's a complete diversion. It's camouflage.
So did this guy want to promote your work?
Well, he was hammered by his, all the archaeologists went bananas, you know. Right. Archaeologists are not historians. Then we had, before that, independent of us, Dr. Victor Klube of Oxford, who's an astrophysicist, and he said, look, a comet must have struck Britain around, you know, the middle of the 6th century. Perfectly correct. Comet destroyed much of Britain and Ireland. And he then got flack from everybody, you know. And so the few who... Professor Michael Bailey was luckier later. He came up with dendrochronology, and he said all the forests of Britain and Ireland were destroyed in the mid-6th century by ash from a Krakatoa volcano in the Pacific. Yeah. And we wrote and said, look, it's not ash from the Pacific, specifically destroying forests in Britain and Ireland, nowhere else. It's the comet. He then changed his mind and he said, yes, it's a comet. Right. No, the comet figures hugely in our histories. Oh. Devastates the Arthurian Britain.
Now, just before we move on with the Arthurian stuff, Alan, I just want to mention, in Programme 1 we covered an event which happened in this house where there was a serious fire.
Yeah.
Your colleague was in a coma. It was a horrendous time for you, and as mentioned in the previous show, we're trying to get the police to investigate this. And just to update viewers on what's happening, there has been some correspondence from the police. I haven't at this point in time had any correspondence because I wrote to the police. They still haven't replied to me. I've sent them a copy of the video. Now, they have corresponded with Alan, and we don't really want to say what was said, but what we will say is that you are taking and possibly going to pursue certain lines of action based on what they've said, because they've not, let's just say it's not fully satisfactory what they've come back and said.
Well, it's the usual performance whenever we've been attacked. You know, we've had numerous attacks, not from the police up here in Newcastle, but before we've got at. Their attitude is one of negativity and indifference. In other words, they've got a carpet and they're going to sweep it under it.
Yeah. It's as if, just from my own opinion, from what I've seen of their response, it's as if they're going to ignore it and play it down and seemingly just hope it goes away. Now, we're not going to let that happen because the evidence is blatant as far as I'm concerned in that video.
Well, they've been told to ignore it.
You think so?
I think so.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think this thing is too persistent, too widespread. It's possible that people in high places, shall we say, have realised that we weren't a pair of minor characters, dummies, going to do a little handbook of 20 pages paperback in Cardiff. We were something different. It's like you step on the tail of a snake, you know, and you might think, oh, it's only a little snake, but it bites you, you're dead. You know, it's not a worm.
And you know, when the time is right, I will report on what happens with regards to that investigation. And
look, we tried very hard. With the gaps in our work, we did everything we could to get this project out of Britain. We went to America. Thought we'd transfer the entire attention there because of Arthur II and his brother Maddox going to America. And so we've tried to get things out that way, out of Britain, the backtrack into the Middle East, and out into we've tried everything to get out of Britain, you know.
Is that because you think people in those countries are more likely to receive that history better and believe it?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I was privileged enough to be asked to do the Bemis lecture, which is an annual lecture in Cambridge, just outside Boston. And after the lecture, I had a guy come up to me, and he was well dressed in his English type, you know, and he was from the embassy in Washington. He'd come to the UNL to say, and he was very, you shouldn't be saying things like this. You shouldn't be.
Right.
Didn't want it.
So let's because we haven't mentioned that throughout this series, Alan, but let's just touch on it. You have uncovered Culburn inscriptions in America.
No, we haven't.
You haven't.
American historians have, and researchers, and they've been doing it certainly since 1900 and earlier.
One area is in Kentucky.
Kentucky's the major area, northern and southern Tennessee.
Right. So tell us what evidence has been found in Kentucky which suggests that British settlers or explorers arrived there prior to 600 AD.
Well, the first thing, everybody forgets that the Native Americans were maybe living they weren't all living in tents on the prairies. They had towns, and they built wooden buildings, perhaps more primitive than ours and so on, and they had associations, sometimes 10, 12,000 people in towns. There were millions of them, but they died in the millions from white man's diseases and so on. And these were not as the primitive people that people often led to believe. And they had histories. The Delaware had a history, and others. Two of these histories were then, they wrote them on sticks. Well, the Welsh used to write on sticks, you know that? Colburn is written on sticks, that's a straight stroke alphabet. Certainly, I think it was Dr. Ward got hold of the one major history, and it was translated. The Indian chief translated what was on the sticks. Remember, he wrote it all down, and they gave him bundles of sticks, the histories. They finished up in the hands of Rafinesque, who was the first sort of real pioneering academic setting up universities in the Midwest. And so these histories relate how a great race of white men arrived there, and they describe where these white men were.
So the language on the sticks is what?
Well, I don't know what the language is on the sticks. It's the Indian writing is on the sticks. I don't know. They're tucked away somewhere in the vaults of the Smithsonian, who conveniently can't find them.
Right. But a stick is easy to carbon date.
Of course you can.
Right, so...
Well, if you only go back to the carbon dating of maybe they recabbed them and recopied them, I don't know. The point is that they had histories that describe antiquity of their own race, which have proven out when people dig up things, like battlefields and so on, they find battlefield skulls and arrows and...
You were interviewed on American television when you went over there, weren't you, Alan?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And I spoke in a conference down in Columbus, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, and I went round, you know.
So let me ask you directly: has there been any?
I was over there twice.
Right. Any Culburn inscriptions found in America?
Dozens. Right along the east coast, right through the Midwest. We think they sailed. If you look at a map, things look good.
What date are these dated to?
How can you date stone carving? You know, but the information on them would seem to be 1,500 years old, I would think. There's a cave, one place, a very narrow little cave you've got to squeeze in, and all the walls are plastered with Culburn. You've got to go up a hill through the woods and all. There's a lot of research being done on this. This is the point. They're finding artifacts, and the American Indians didn't smelt copper, and they're finding copper items, and they didn't smelt copper. They say they didn't. They're going to the battlefields where battles were fought with these white men, and they're finding European skeletons. They can tell from the teeth, I think it's bicuspids, and also there's an Inca bone in your skull. That's what they call it. And they can tell that these are white people. And they've been trying to carbon date them, do what they can, about the 6th century again. So these people did arrive there in vast numbers.
And what about evidence of weaved items and that kind of thing?
Yeah, they found mummies in caves with woven cloth wrapped around them. And the Americans, again, didn't weave. Right. They didn't need to, they could just skin animals. And
your standard view of history is that Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? Yeah. So, I mean, is that... How much does academia look at theories that Britons went there more than 1,000 or 1,000 years before Columbus?
You got to realise America is still very young. It's very clear that Leif Erikson, he went there around 1100, the Scandinavians. It's abundantly clear now that Henry Sinclair, so the Earl of Orkney, the Scots went there in 1397. Right. It is abundantly clear.
Just remind me, what year is Columbus?
What, 1492?
So,
But,
so that's two groups that have gone there before.
Yeah, and that the Brits went there is abundantly clear.
So you think the 6th century they went there?
Well, you get well, you can date it. If you read the Irish thing, St. Brendan, he's supposed to go there, and he meets monks when he gets there. Right. Hang on. If you read it carefully, you'll see. Brendan says he went on this voyage. He wanted to go because he heard of the voyage of the Tairn. Now, a Tairn is a monarch. Right. Who's the monarch who goes there? Well, the monarch who's contemporary with Brendan is Arthur II. Right. Bump. And you trace Brendan's antecedents carefully and see the intermarriages of the lives of the saints. Interesting. Brendan then goes to the men who made ships, and they made him a ship and agreed to sail with him. He didn't go in a leather Irish boat curragh, they call him. He went in a ship. But nonetheless, he gets out and he meets the monks who are already there. And so you got 6th century straight away. Did Brendan go? I believe the Irish have got it right, yeah.
So why do you think then that, because you really only get to the truth if you re-examine and are prepared to change your view based on new evidence that comes up. Why is it that in academia and in history, why aren't they prepared to say, no, Christopher Columbus wasn't the first, there was this group and that group and that group went there. Why can't they just admit that?
I wouldn't if I was them, not till now, I wouldn't. America split away from Britain in a pretty ferocious and a very nasty war. It wasn't very clean, right? You were if you didn't recognise the king, you were a traitor there. If you could be shot, you didn't take prisoners. We lost the war, justly, right? But you realise we were in Canada in some strength, and they were not a strong republic. They were along the East Coast at the time, so we were a threat. We burned their White House down, didn't we? Right. The French had Louisiana. The Spanish had New Mexico and California. Right. And Texas they wanted, right? You had, I think Florida may have been Spanish. Right. You had, the Russians had Alaska, and the Americans were on the East Coast, and the Brits had Canada. It wasn't a good time to say, hey, look, there's British people in the Midwest. Because the Brits say, all right, we got there first. Okay. No, it's not a good idea. Right. Yeah. So you had to sort of see it from their point of view, and it's perfectly logical. What you know is that when Walter Raleigh set up his colony at Roanoke on the coast, went back and all the people were gone, and the Native Americans there said other people had come from the interior and taken them away. And they'd gone into the interior. In Kentucky and parts of Indiana and that, down there, Tennessee, there are people called the Melungeons, and they're white people. And the Melungeons were there before Daniel Boone or Kit Carson or any of the American research explorers got there. They found these white people there speaking a form of English.
Melungeons.
Melungeons. I met some of them, been invited to their houses. And they still make a box cigar, guitar. Right? And the guitar is in a box, and they cut a hole in the middle and run the strings over it with a hole there. It's not a rod and a... And if you go to the Welsh National Folk Museum, you'll see these box cigar guitars. Yeah, they're still making them. And they...
So you mentioned about them...
They had a hell of a problem when they started then forming new states with counts and they were going to have elections. The whites could vote. Well, you wouldn't let the black people vote, would you? They were slaves, right? They can't vote. The Native Americans, they're not white. They can't vote. What can you do with the Melungeons? They had a hell of a problem.
They didn't know whether to give them the vote or not.
That's right.
Because they were native, well, they seemed to be native, but
that's
they were
right.
white.
So Jim Michael and his people in Kentucky and Indiana, they were tracking all this, and they are firmly convinced that Arthur went there. They know that about it. Right. And I think so, because the inscriptions are there, they can be read. What we then want to do is to say, where did they go afterwards? Because these histories tell you all about these white people. American, everybody forgets the Native American tribes had histories, and they describe it. I've got copies.
All right, now, well, just to wrap up, I just want to mention, because all you're asking people to do is dig a hole in certain places and see if there's something there, and if there is, then do a professional excavation, because you want professional teams to excavate these sites.
The evidence for all this is so strong, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
It's the cost-benefit analysis. The cost of digging a hole and doing a survey is peanuts compared to the benefit that it would bring to those areas.
Right. Okay, the archaeologists dug up an abbey, Florida, Strata Florida Abbey in West Wales. They spent $1.25 million. We dug up St. Peter's, did a thorough excavation. It cost £17,000. You know, they're not exactly efficient.
With that excavation, Alan, if somebody asked me after they watched the King Arthur programme that we did, why didn't you just go down that extra 5 or 6 feet to get into the crypts?
Well, how do you do it when your site is hit by a 100-mile-an-hour gale, and then hit by 2 subsequent gales in the next fortnight of 70 miles an hour, and you have no money?
Well, I mean, it's digging a hole.
No, we've never received a penny in grants. Okay. Right?
To dig down a further 5 feet, is that not? Do you just not need a pick and a shovel?
No, you'd have to re-put. There's a wall leaning that way slightly, one of the major walls that just has a lean, and we had it blocked. We had it reinforced with major timbers over that spot. And secondly, you try going up and doing it. It sounds easy. Right. Yeah, it's easy to say. You try it. Right. I got to tell you, you try it. Right.
It's legit. What you're saying is logistically, it's not just as simple as
it's
one
not
man
as
digging a
simple
hole.
as you think.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I mean, it's okay to sit in your armchair. You try it, mate.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So what we did, we were trying to get out to America and track where these people went, because they moved down from North America south, you see. So we have tracked them all the way down. So we know where they are now.
Okay, and
all the descendants.
Yeah. Well, this story and your research is by no means complete. It's in many ways it's the start, because a lot of these areas haven't been excavated fully, or to how you would like them. So hopefully we're going to get the scanning done at first at Unisabul. We've had an offer of a professional company who has ground penetration radar, and I'm in the process of arranging with the landowners to get on that land and for us to go and do the tests.
We've had ground penetration radar up there.
I appreciate that.
So I don't need you or anybody else to tell me. I'm being funny now. And we have one of these German machines, and all they're going to do is repeat what we've done. But it's what you call verification.
The farmers didn't witness it, and I'm trying to get them on board so that we can all then...
Well, the day that any Welsh farmer wakes up, and we've met a lot of them, that'll be the day.
I'm trying to keep these people on board, on the landowners, because they're two lovely guys.
I know, I like them. They're nice people.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't come 300 yards.
Yeah, but as you said, they're running a farm. They're sheep farmers, so that's their living.
Half an hour.
That's their living.
It'll take them half an hour. Come on.
They've agreed to have the land scanned, so that's good enough for me. And if we can show to them, we're going to get an official report on this.
Yeah,
then we can take it forward.
But you see, we take umbrage at anybody suggesting in any way that we are making it up or wrong. When we know we're damn right and we're dead honest. So we do find it offensive, if you want to know. Right. Okay. Thoroughly offensive. Right. Not from you, but the general attitude that everybody's got to check us out. If Joe Bloggs from a university went there, nobody's going to say the same to him. Yeah. And we've been dead honest, and we spent our own money on this. Right. And we've never... You see, we don't think it's right for us to dig these sites. Why don't you dig down the extra 5 feet? I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not going to do it, because it's got to be preserved.